Hello guys and welcome back to another Unobtained episode. It has been a while since the last episode, but I hope you guys enjoyed this one because I did a lot of cool stuff in the meantime. So right after I made the last episode, I immediately started mining the pillars in the end, the obsidian pillars. You would think that would take like weeks to mine them all, but I used withers to mine them, so it all went pretty quickly. And after I had done that, I built this huge TNT duplicator array to mine out all the end zone in the end. And now you might ask, why would you remove the whole main end island? Well, that is because I wanted to build this gigantic mega build, which is too large to fit into my measly render distance of 10. And some of you may already recognize it. It is a replica of the space station called Deep Space Nine in a similarly named Star Trek series. So it is absolutely huge. It is a scale of 1 to 4. And it wasn't designed by me, it was designed by someone called Gamerbyte. And yeah, he designed this 9 years ago and I absolutely love it. And it's all centered on the exit end portal, which is inside here. And I have shown in the last episode that I made the exit end portal really high up in the air because it's way higher than the ground level because it needed to be in the center of this room for it to kind of look good. So it was designed by Gamerbyte and you can find a link to his video in the description. And the TNT duplicator array over here was designed by Ilmango, and his video you can find in the description too. After I updated to after I blew up the main end island, I gathered a bunch of overstacked items, as you can see here, and I've got the minecarts and other stuff in other boxes too. And because of that, I could finally update to 1.12.2. During the construction of the Deep Space Nine build, I made a lot of use of this device here, which is an update suppressor. And this update suppressor can be used to make shadow items, which is a thing that was discovered by FX. And shadow items are really cool because it basically allows you to have two instances of an item stack, which are basically the same object in the code. So you can have one item stack in a chest and a hopper putting stuff into that item stack, and one in your hand. So I'm just making one. So if I open a box, you can see there's stone in my hand, and that's one of those shadow items. And if I put those into this chest, then if I remember correctly, yeah, stone will be funneled into this item stack. And if I pick this one up here, then if I place stone, it will instantly refill in my inventory, as you can see. So that was really useful to build the Deep Space Nine build, because I used Lightmatica to get a schematic of the build, and that way I didn't have to constantly pick stuff back up. And it also allows for duplicating, which is a bit cheaty of course, but it allows for it, so that's cool. And you can find FX's video about item shadowing in the description. After I finished building Deep Space Nine, I started building a lot of these piston bolts around my world, and that is because I kind of dislike the elytra because it allows you to fly at almost 30 blocks per second, and the rockets you use to fly are super cheap, so it's too cheaty in my opinion, so that's why I built these. And they lead to stuff all over my world, so for example, this bolt leads to the instant Dalvik setup. And this is pretty fast too, because you travel 20 blocks per second using a piston bolt. And if you go diagonal, it's even faster because of the Pythagorean theorem. So you go 28 blocks per second. So now I'm over here at the instant Dalvik thing where I broke a lot of bedrock. And of course, because I built all of those piston bolts, I decided to build a mob switch in the nether too, which is way over there behind this permaloader. And similarly, I built a lot of piston bolts in the end, so there are piston bolts pretty much everywhere, and they lead all the way up to even here, where I have built some cool stuff. And they have minecart elevators down to little builds I made in the end. And there is one pretty interesting piston bolt I have, which is this one, which was mainly just a challenge for me to learn a bit about the piston bolt corners, like I did here. This is a pretty complex corner because I needed to make sure that this corner didn't activate any of these pistons, which could break stuff. So this goes around the center of the Deep Space Nine build, so it is like a hexagon and goes around it like this, and then over to that end gateway over there, behind which is the item shadowing setup. After I built all of those piston bolts, I decided to make an invisible chunk setup, which is a method to load a chunk without it being populated, which is interesting because unpopulated chunks don't get sent to the client, so the server doesn't send them to the client, so they are completely invisible for the client. And they have a bunch of interesting properties, and you can place blocks inside of them. If you click them on the side of another block, you can place blocks fine. Oh, there probably already was a block there, so it didn't work. This should work though. So you can't see the block at all, but it is actually... Wow, I'm having a bunch of bad luck here. But it is actually being placed. I hope, yes. So this time it is actually being placed. And this chunk is entity processing and everything, so like if I could drop an item into there, it becomes invisible, but I can pick it up. So it's really interesting, and you can also, if you are inside of the chunk, you fall slower, because it was a kind of a hacky fix for back in the day. Sometimes chunks would just not get sent to the client, and because the client had a lot of freedom back then, you could just fall straight into the void. So it would just fall through those blocks, so they coded it so that you fall slower, so you wouldn't fall into the void anymore. So, oh no, can I get out of here? Anyways, that's pretty interesting to me. Please let me out. Okay, so you just can't get out. Well, anyways, that's quite interesting. And this was discovered by Myron and the other guys who did the any falling block uh, stuff. So you can find a video about it in the description. After that, I decided to do a bit of a simpler project, so I built a small sugarcane farm here. And after I built this small non-automatic one, I had gathered enough sugarcane to build this big fully automatic one. So how this works is you have flying machines over here, which fly and break the middle sugarcane so they fall down to the ground. And then after that, they can be picked up by hopper minecarts, which run underneath right here. And they're currently not on because I have my on and off switch on off. So I should show it to you guys how it works. So it's currently off, so if I pull this, all the minecarts start driving. And if I go all the way to the other side, there is another lever for activating the flying machines. So if I press this, the flying machines will start flying, which will be probably a bit laggy. But this is a design made by Nambon, so you can find this video in the description once again. Yeah, it's pretty laggy, but I modified his design so the minecarts, so it would be less laggy because the minecarts wouldn't fill up completely and leave a bunch of items behind after they had run. So all of these slime things you see are just ghost blocks. And now all the sugarcane that were on the leaves are getting pushed out. And then they're falling onto the dirt, and below the dirt you have these minecart tracks. And over here you have a simple unloading station, so they come over here. The comparator over there measures how many items are inside of them, and then if there are any items inside of them, they deactivate this redstone torch on this block and on this block, which means this redstone dust turns off, which means this fence gate closes so they can't ride away anymore. And then below here is another hopper minecart which picks up the items, and then it all flows on into this chest. So I designed this unloading station myself, which is why it's a bit bulky. You can probably find simpler designs online, so don't use this one, but I like it. And this thing over here is something I would like to show you guys too, because it's quite interesting. So what this device here does is it butts a comparator. So in 1.12, if you have a block above a chest, then the comparator can't read any items out of the chest, so it should be turned off right now because of this block over here. But if you have a dispenser next to it and you click onto the slot, the comparator will update and it will turn off. But now there are items inside of this chest and the block is removed, so it should be on, so it's butted once again. So with this simple setup, you can detect someone clicking inside a container, so it doesn't even require items being inside, but just the click is enough to update this comparator, which is quite interesting. So after I finished the sugarcane farm, I decided to move my world onto a carpet server, which is a mod developed by Nambon, which allows for all kinds of cool stuff. For example, you can see the autosave timer in the top left, but it allows for a lot more cool and useful stuff like the chunk debug screen and everything. So that's why the tab screen looks a little weird. Moving on to that carpet server was also quite convenient for this particular build because this is a RNG manipulator. So basically how this works, once I activate this lever, this redstone line will load a chunk that is currently unloaded, and in that chunk is a chest which is right on a chunk border. And when it's right on a chunk border, it will check, chests will be ticked each tick, and when they are ticked, they will check around them for other chests to connect into a large chest. So when it's on a chunk border, it will do a get block in the other chunk, but if that chunk is unloaded, it will load this chunk for checking that block. So it will load this chunk, and then there is a chest here too, and that will load that chunk. And then you will have to wait a tick, and then it will load two chunks again, and so forth. But why would you want to load a lot of chunks if you want to RNG manipulate? Well, a while ago it was discovered that if you have a particular chunk being loaded in a particular area of the world, it will reset the RNG to a particular number. So you know how woodland mansions are very rare? Well, that's because they have special mansion regions in the world, which are 80 by 80 chunk areas. So that is a pretty large area in which only one mansion can generate. So if you load a chunk in that mansion region, as it's called, then it will reset the RNG to a particular number that is linked to that particular mansion region. So over there is a mansion region which is which has a number which the RNG will reset to, which is useful for me. So I'll explain this by just showing you. So if I hit this lever and then, oh, I need to get my pickaxe. That wasn't smart. So this fortune, I don't have fortune pickaxe. I'm really, wait, it's here. Okay. And then I mine these diamond ores. You'll see each time I get 4 diamonds. So I get 4 diamonds each time. And that is because the RNG is being reset each tick, so it gets reset to that particular number that is useful for us. So it gives 4 damage each time. And this works for coal ore and quartz too. And I have it configured so it also drops 32 for lapis ore, which is the maximum for lapis ore. And it also drops 8 redstone per redstone ore. And I did this by using a Java executable which Earth Computer coded to find a particular mansion region that would work for my seed. So I have fortune 3 and it drops 4 diamonds each time, which is super unlikely. So if you add these odds up for the 40 ores I broke already, then it would be like 1 in a million usually, but I'm influencing the RNG, so it's possible. So that's super cool. It should stop working at some point, I'm pretty sure, because I should add some more chunk loading lines. Yeah, it stopped working now. So if I fly over there, so my rockets, then you'll basically see what I was talking about. It's very simple. So you have all of these chests that are along chunk borders, and this chest will check for other chests on this block, this block, this block, and also this block, which means it loads this chunk over here. And then this chest will load this chunk, and then you'll have to wait 1 tick, and then 1 tick later this chest will load this chunk, and this chest will load this chunk, and then 1 tick later this chest will load this chunk. So every tick it loads 2 chunks, and it does that for 80 chunks, and then it makes a corner and then it goes back around. So if you look at these, they're pointing in the other direction. So that chest would load that chunk, but this chest loads this chunk into this direction and goes back and forth for a bunch of chunks. And then over here it would loop back around. I'm not sure how far this goes. Okay, so I made it up until here. So, and then this loops back around to here, and then it loads this chunk, and then these chests go back to the beginning, and you should have a little more than 1800 chests, because how it works, so 2 chunks are loaded each tick, and you want at least 1 chunk being loaded each tick, and all of the chunks get unloaded every 900 ticks. And that is because every 900 ticks you'll have one of these auto saves. Like in the top of the screen you can see the timer in ticks, and each second it goes down by 20 ticks. So every 900 ticks the game will check, like, does this chunk will need to be loaded? No? Okay, in that case I'll unload it. And that happens for all of these chunks except for the 2 chunks which have just been loaded by the chest loading. But there is a little problem, because if you have the line loading more chunks while it's looping around, while it's snaking around, then it can load chunks around itself for population. So that's why it stops working, and I should add like 2 more rows of chests, so 160 chests I should add for it to work permanently. But I think it's fine for now, because I got so many diamonds already. It's super cool. And I'm not sure who discovered this, but I used the tool made by Earth Computer, and that will be found in the description once again. So, some final notes for now. I want to give a big thanks to everyone in the Minecraft Discontinued Features wiki Discord for discovering a lot of these cool features that I can use in my world. And of course, a big thanks to everyone I mentioned earlier in this video who designed farms which I built. And I also want to mention that my Unobtained world turned 1 year old about a month ago, so happy anniversary, I guess. And thanks a lot for watching, and if you enjoyed and made it all the way here, please subscribe. It would be really cool, and I might be able to upload more often then. So See you guys later. Bye bye.